Welcome in the arena. This is an episode of The Control Plane, and I'm Allyson Klein. And today I am delighted to be with AMI Chief Product Officer, Zach Bobroff. Welcome to the program, Zach. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here, Allyson.
So, Zach, we've talked before many times, and we've been on stage together, but this is the first time you're on The Control Plane. Why don't you just go ahead and introduce yourself and your role as Chief Product Officer at AMI?
Sure. So as the Chief Product Officer of AMI, AMI tends to do a number of firmware products. So these are products that will boot your system. They'll allow management of your system at runtime. They'll allow management of fleets of systems. So as Chief Product Officer, we're really talking to a lot of customers, gathering the requirements, and really making sure that we have a roadmap that is meeting the industry's requirements and customers at large. So our two major customer bases today are the system manufacturers, whether they be OEMs and ODMs, and also the hyperscalers that use these systems in large deployments. We're also now starting to work with neoclouds and other consumers of systems at a large scale that are really reshaping the way the industry is looking.
AMI has been in the firmware game for over 40 years. And it's really interesting because firmware is really hitting its magical moment with the rise of AI data centers. And in that, you made a shift where you've been focused uniquely on proprietary solutions, working with that customer base for a really long time. And you've introduced a new approach with really embracing open source initiatives in this area. Why open source at this time? And why is that such a key part of your strategy?
Very good question. So a lot of this historically has to deal with not necessarily who's in control, but who's been defining the needs of their products today. So for long periods of times, the OEMs were the ones who really owned platform architecture and platform requirements. Then as the kind of rise of hyperscaler came out, it really became first ODMs, and then also the shift then heavily moved to the end consumer of hyperscalers. Now with this growing ecosystem of end customers that are looking to not only take control of firmware, but own it and vertically integrate it, open source is the best path to innovation, ecosystem adoption, and really having everybody on the same page so that as they take their first steps into this market, you want to make sure they have a very good experience.
Now, if folks have not been following or listening, have not been following AMI's open source journey, can you just do the 30-second explanation between the broader industry effort that you're deeply involved in around OpenBMC and what you've delivered with MegaRAC OneTree Community Edition? And then, how do we look at those two efforts together, and can you make sense of that for the audience?
A very, very good point as well. So basically, OpenBMC is a Linux Foundation product or project. It started, I want to say, 7 to 10 years ago. Actually came out of IBM as IBM was doing some initial work on their open power line. They viewed BMC as something that they didn't need all the bells and whistles of a full-fledged BMC, but they needed something slimmer, lighter weight that was more directly targeting their needs. And this has evolved over time to something that's much more easily deployable and usable, but it is also a Linux Foundation project. So it has its own timeline. It basically is always evolving, always growing, and these other items. So what we've done with our open source approach is, number one, we've really upped our contributions to the Linux Foundation OpenBMC to make sure that we are good stewards of the community. We've also developed our OneTree product. Our OneTree product is OpenBMC at its core, and you can kind of view it as a distribution of OpenBMC. So OpenBMC has its own timelines, like I mentioned. So this is a tagged, well-validated version of OpenBMC. We're testing it across multiple silicon vendors, multiple ODM platforms and OEM platforms, and basically follows that same OpenBMC philosophy of we continue to step it forward as quickly as possible. So we're constantly syncing with OpenBMC. With our proprietary solution that also is there for customers to license, we basically have moved to a Red Hat-esque model of where this has got a long-term support version, Customers do have direct support engagements with us for when they need issues resolved quickly and effectively. So it's got SLAs behind it. And then we also have some IP packages that are advanced features that we can't make part of the community today based upon third-party engagements. But basically, it's to build on top of what's in the community today.
Awesome. Now, when you talked a little bit about, the slimmer community edition, what does that involve in terms of core capabilities? And how do you contrast that with your more production offerings that you're offering to customers?
Sure. So if we take some industry terms that exist in the market today that have existed for periods of time, like IPMI and Redfish are probably two examples of this is how you remotely talk to a server that you're trying to manage. The community edition support has a more limited functionality for that based upon this is what the community has said that they require. Now, other individuals might require more complete support or more enhanced support in those areas, and that's the main difference between as you level those up with our IP packages is you might need management of a RAID card or a NIC or a GPU in your system today is with the rise of AI data centers. And this is where some of our proprietary solution kind of fills those gaps. So the base solution will include not necessarily limited support, but base support, and then we level up from there.
Awesome. Now, when you think about, AMI, one thing that comes to mind is that you guys have been kind of on a tear with broader visibility within the community about your strategy and what you're delivering in terms of solutions to foundational problems that you're seeing in AI data centers. You recently hosted with Meta an OpenBMC meetup at Meta's campus, and you spoke openly about the proliferation of forks in code and what you called the five-headed Hydra of challenge to AI data center command. Can you talk a little bit about that five-headed Hydra and how you're tackling that with firmware?
Sure. So this is one of the not necessarily consequences, but one of the things you have to deal with open source when you try to embrace it and use it is that open source kind of goes on its own evolution. And as you buy systems today, you're going to be buying them from multiple different vendors, right? So if you have a customized solution for each one of those vendors, whether it be a silicon architecture or a different manufacturer, and as you multiply those out, it becomes very difficult for you to manage. So this is where the OneTree name really comes from, is that you've got these multiple forks in the industry. You've then got forking that you need to do for silicon and manufacturers. So what we've done is basically take information from those different forks and merge them back into a common tree today. So this is the OneTree naming really comes from our engineering efforts behind this. And you want this to be a single pane of glass. You want to have all of your systems with a common firmware so that for bug fixing, for new features that you're adding, and for long-term support within your own data center, you really want this to be some commonality that you're able to work with, because it's not scalable to continue to work across these multiple trees. And there's only so many engineers you have, so many resources, so much money that you have to spend, and also only so much that DevOps can kind of fill the gaps for you on. You want this to be as simple as it can be at the end user. So the five-headed Hydra's got multiple angles to it, and you really want to have as simplified of an environment as possible.
Now, you talked about a single secure code base as a strategy, especially it relates to security. And it's not just an architecture choice. This is something that's an imperative. How does converging around one OpenBMC change your strategy in terms of what that single secure code base looks like?
So security is paramount to AMI. I know that people will talk about security issues that exist in firmware, and they will continue to proliferate in firmware, but we're ahead of this, fixing them. We're patching them. Now, whether or not our different partners take them or not is another question, but we've taken a strong approach to security of putting out advisories to our customers and also going through the effort of having third-party audits of our code base. So the one that's probably the most industry aware is there's OCP SAFE from the Open Compute platform or project. So this is where you have auditors come in, review the platform, and actually put a stamp of approval on your source code. So our community edition that is within the OCP project, we do have OCP SAFE audits on a yearly basis today, and we continue to evolve that as we go forward. But you want to make sure that security is always patched, because with the scale and fleet of systems that people are running today, if you're not looking at this with an important lens, you're going to be caught flat-footed when a security issue does exist.
Now, one of the things that I think about is like the regional efforts around something like the Cyber Resilience Act in the EU, and some of the challenges that operators are having in terms of the management of their data and the management of their infrastructure to meet sovereign requirements. Can you talk a little bit about how that interacts with something like OneTree?
Sure. So sovereign data requirements are obviously creating not necessarily stresses, but differences in the way that different cloud providers are approaching the problem. Number one is you're getting more cloud providers than your Amazons, Googles, and Microsofts of years past. You're now having kind of local heroes start to emerge within these regions to really become hyperscale-esque, or these neoclouds are also really filling that gap. And as they approach this problem, they hadn't really thought about firmware in the same way because they hadn't run it at the scale of some of these large cloud players in the US in years past. So they're going through some of this learning experience and doing the events at Meta, doing work in the open source community, engaging with them on their turf is where we're really trying to show that AMI is an open source provider and an open source player, and has really changed the way that we are embracing and working with the community. So most of this is, I want to say, a learning experience for AMI, but also we're trying to educate the industry that AMI has changed our methodologies to better work with the practices they're looking for.
That's amazing. Now, when we talked about engineering teams thinking about lifecycle, one of the things that I think about is that you've got a really deep relationship with your customers all the way through from prototyping to platform enablement and bring up even to support throughout the lifespan of the infrastructure. Can you talk about how you work with your customers from that perspective?
Sure. And this is, I don't want to say fairly straightforward, but it's pretty easy of where if everybody needs to manage a firmware for a life cycle of their platform, they're going to have to build large teams to do that. Now, can every company do that? Yes, but it's also going to be expensive. So where AMI really works here is we fill the gap in being an economy of scale provider of doing things at the core across these platforms so that we can absorb some of that cost and then basically sell a solution to our end customers that comes at a cheaper rate than it would be if everybody built their own individual teams. So, I mean, nothing really hidden there. AMI is here to not necessarily make money, but to also provide the solution that can be something that customers are looking for at a rate that is also appreciated as well. So basically, AMI has teams that are here to work across silicon vendors. As you mentioned, we work pre-power on well before silicon is available, all the way through 10 years to 15 years after launch. And we're working with manufacturers. So the system OEMs and ODMs are also very familiar with us and working with our products. So as they get to that end customer, we already have solutions that have been deployed in their data centers, and now we can make them also understand how to use them and deploy them and also keep them secure for the entire lifetime of their platform. So looking to have.
Awesome. Now, I know that developers are engaging with AMI all the time and you're growing a community effort. one final question for you, Zach. How can AMI community folks engage with the OneTree developer portal and events like OpenBMC meetups and stay in tune with AMI so that they know about all the opportunities ahead to develop together and engage your team?
Sure. There's definitely a few ways. One is they can check out our community edition and provide feedback. You can find that with our OneTree community edition. You can Google it and find it. We've also got our developer portal on our page now. They can come there and engage directly with links and contact information to different AMI individuals. I would also say we're planning multiple meetups this year that come in, join the community, and tell us what you think. We're here to get some feedback. OCP, or Open Compute Project, is definitely a place where there's a lot of open platform discussion going on. That's probably one of the largest industry places that they can also engage. And also just reach out to us via email. Like we're not the scary AMI. We're very open to having discussions with customers and industry experts such as yourself.
Well, Zach, it's been a real pleasure. The work that you guys do is foundational to making data centers and compute platforms actually exist and run as entities in our lives. So thank you for the continued innovation. And I would love to catch up with you again sometime to learn what you and the team are doing to advance and attack that five-headed Hydra.
Yeah, and you'll see in the next 6 months to 18 months, the way the industry is evolving is crazy. With the move from servers to racks to pods to rows to rooms, the way that systems are being managed is rapidly evolving, and you want to make sure that you are paying attention to these, because if you don't, you're not going to be getting the value you're looking for, and you're not going to be caught up on the way that these systems are being used today. So it's definitely an exciting time, and we'll see where the world takes us.
Awesome. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.